You're listening to Maximum Medicine Radio with host Doc Martin. Stay tuned in or call in. You won't want to miss what's happening next. How do you step into your maximum potential? How do you connect your spiritual drive with your physical path? Stick around as Doc Martin takes listeners on a journey through the seen and unseen, the accepted and the unbelievable. Get ready to meet the maximum you the world needs on Maximum Medicine Radio with Doc Martin now. Hi, everybody. You're back to Maximum Medicine. I'm Doc Martin, and I have a guest coming all the way from Romania. Many of you have read his books, have been following him in his jungle explorations. This is Howard Charing. Howard, I'm so happy you're here.
Well,
thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for the invitation. It's much appreciated.
So I want to tell people a little bit about you because Howard was, from my understanding and my recollection from years back, is one of the first people who went exploring into the jungle in the Peruvian Amazon to learn the shamanism there and the value of plants. And then he and others have created the Eagle's Wing Shamanic Center in the UK and a Foundation for Shamanic Studies in the US. And he has written several books, The Accidental Shaman, a book on plant shamanism. And he was good friends with Pablo Amaringo, who is you guys will probably remember him. Behind Howard, I think, are probably some of those images.
No, they're not from Pablo. No, they're some of my work. This is my
This is your stuff. Beautiful.
Yeah, this is my stuff. Yeah, this is my kind of studio office.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
But we will see some of the images, and you guys remember Pablo Amaringo was a Peruvian shaman, worked in the Amazon, very, very in tune with plants. Howard will tell us more. And when he did his ayahuasca journeys, he saw incredible visions and learned the cosmology through those visions, and then painted them, and then became an artist and a teacher. And so, Howard, you went to the jungle.
Yeah.
So for a East UK person leaving that hubbub, what hubbub did you leave first? What prompted you to leave? And then how did you end up in the jungle?
Well, the first thing is I'm nowhere near the first Westerner to go to the Amazon. Please, I want to nowhere near the first person. So back in the 90s, I was living in London at the time, and I was just kind of captivated by the idea of the plant medicines of ayahuasca, and I heard some of it, and actually from Pablo's work, because I was familiar with Pablo's work at that time, and so I came to the Amazon rainforest, and I worked with shamans, and I assume the reason I went is most Westerners go is one is for this kind of a exploration of consciousness, the healing work, the personal deep healing, and so on, and an encounter with a kind of another side of the creative powers of the planet. So that's what really kind of drew me out there, and I kind of was captivated by this the magic, and certainly on meeting Pablo, even the presence of a real master, and he was able to paint in great detail, and forensic detail, his visions as he used to be a shaman. Yeah. So many things, and then of course not just the ayahuasca. There's many other plants that you work with that you diet, and they show you parts of yourself that they're kind of hidden to you, and so it's a kind of a personal revelation exploration. So it's one of those things that you can go on and on and on, but now and then you have to take a break and regroup and integrate and start again. So I wouldn't say something I will do all the time. I do this, and now and then take a couple of years away, free, and then when I'm ready to go back, and I'll go back again. So it's a mixture of things.
So one of the things I've looked at, and I myself am in no way knowledgeable about everything related to shamanism, much less specifically plant shamanism. But we Westerners seem to be drawn to the indigenous. Most of us come from Judeo-Christian backgrounds, and we go off on vision quests, on, go hang out with medicine men and women, go hike Machu Picchu. What are we searching for, and what is available to us that you have learned about when you went into the jungle?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but certainly I feel, in my observation, is that people are searching for an individual, a personal, a meaningful spiritual interaction that's not mediated by any organization or institution. They want a direct contact with the creative power, creative forces. God, call it kind of the consciousness of the earth, and so on. So that's what, and this has been going on really since the 1960s and 70s. There was a big shift, and this in the 1960s and the 1970s of people getting involved in individual, personal, subjective spiritual exploration without the mediation of a third-party institution, organization, or church, call it what you want. So yeah, so I think it's an evolutionary development with people at a collective level. And it's a very beautiful thing too.
Mm-hmm. A direct experience of the ineffable.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I was younger, I was probably 12. My grandfather would be furious at the idea that we as humans would put another human between us and what we would consider God. He just thought that was so wrong. But I think another thing that people search for, that I myself searched for, is that reconnection, grouping with nature. And the best place to find that for me is in cultures that are still intricately linked to the land. Absolutely. That the rhythms of the universe are incorporated in their daily way of life. I love going to the highlands of South Central Mexico, to the high desert. The people there, the life force is infused with their connection to the land. So when you went to the jungle, when you look at it, because you've studied with other shamanic cultures, what does the jungle offer to support that connection, or to open your eyes to it?
Well, when you're in the rainforest, I think rainforest is a more appropriate term.
Okay.
Rainforest, it's rivers, it's rain, there is space. What does it tell you? Well, for a start, you move immediately, very quickly, into a natural rhythm, the rhythm of day and night. And around the Amazon rainforest is closer to the equator, so the nights and days are reasonably the same. So around this time it gets dark, this time it gets light. And when you're in the actual rainforest, you become aware of how alive it really is. When it starts to go down, all the animals and birds and so on start to make their presence known. And you hear a group of frogs there, and they make their sound there, and over there a little bit later another group of animals make their sound. So it's the whole thing. It becomes like an interconnected network or web, and you're experiencing this, which you don't get in the cities. It's a different world to be in a natural rhythm day and night, and there are some plants as well which you can diet, which enhance this sensory experience. You really can zoom in on sounds. You connect to aromas which you normally wouldn't do. So the whole rainforest becomes a living thing which you are in, rather than being in a kind of an urban environment which hasn't got a living
right
thing to it. I mean, I think that's the correct phrase for it. I can't find a word for it. So that's very, very interesting. That's very attractive to kind of melt into that natural place. And yeah, I agree. Being in nature is a very special, very healing thing. And we in the West, particularly in the urban part of it, have lost that connection to nature, how healing it can be, and being with trees, and how trees transform energy and they can shift things. And plants and so on have been around for hundreds of millions of years before us humans, before animals. And it's our hubris to think that they have no consciousness, they have no kind of mind, so to speak. And when you start to work with the plants and the trees, you find that's very, very different. They have a consciousness, they have a spirit. And certainly when you're working with certain plants, you can see waves of energy move around between the roots of the trees to other trees. So there's a whole world going on out there, which we're kind of oblivious to in the West. So yeah, it can open your eyes. And I think for people, it's a feeling they have in their body. Yeah, I feel here. I feel good here. I feel home here. I feel connected here. And the city, it's a very, very different experience. And I think people, yes, are looking for an individual personal experience with nature, with the spirit. Yeah, I think it's about being free. You're free when you connect to the land. You're part of it. You're not something outside. There's no mediator. You're there. You're part of it. So I can see it can be very, very attractive. And of course, everybody has their own reasons and motivation for doing this. But yeah, but it's growing. It's increasingly growing. So yeah. And I think it's really good that people bring back that experience back into their everyday life. That kind of extra additional awareness. Yeah.
And I think one of the things you said, well, when you leave all that technology behind, then you're challenged to take in the sensory data that in a technological urban world you might not have ever used.
That's correct.
And that is expanding in and of itself. So I think those of us who still live in relative urban areas, maybe the closest we get is, having a bird feeder, but how many of us gain immense pleasure out of sitting and watching the birds come to the feeder? There is something very healing and powerful about that. But we're going to take a short break. I'm Doc Martin. I'm here with Howard Charing, coming into us from Romania. Thank you for connecting in, and we'll be back in just a minute. Hi, everybody. We're back. I'm Doc Martin, Maximum Medicine, and my guest is Howard Charing, coming in from Eastern Europe in Romania. So, Howard, many of us who stop our daily hubbub of lives and switch over to a deeper, more inner quest, it happens through a physical ailment, an illness, an injury.
Yeah, it can happen through an accident or a serious illness, or somewhere, a place where you actually kind of encounter your mortality. Yeah.
Tell us, so what happened and how did that propel you to the rainforest or to your search?
Well, back in 1983, I was in the elevator and it crashed. And during this crash, that was an amazing story. If I just think about it for a few moments, I knew I was going to die. I think that's. I knew it. I felt it. This is it. This. I'm gone. And I did go. I left. I was gone. I was somewhere. I left my body. I left everything behind. Everything disappeared into like a little tiny white dot, and I was somewhere. And there I am thinking, I don't want to die. And then next few seconds or second fractions of time. Remember, this is all happening. A lift is crashing. Elevators crashing, and the velocity is 11.7 meters a second. So there's a whole story going on here at 11.7 meters a second velocity. And so I'm back in my body and I'm thinking, okay, what do I do now? And I thought, okay, I've got to jump up in the air. And so I'll be in the air when the elevator hits the bottom. Of course, I tried that. You can't move because you're in free fall too. You've got a box around you, but you can't move up. And then out of the blue, I knew exactly what to do. So I reached into my pocket, got my pack of tissues, jammed them in my mouth, and I got on my haunches. And as soon as I had done that, the elevator smashed into the bottom the pit, below the basement. And my lower jaw, the first thing happens, my lower jaw just smashed against my upper jaw. And if my tongue was anywhere near there, if I didn't have those tissues, I'd have chopped my tongue off without a doubt. So how do I know this? I didn't know anything. I had no plans for what happened, what I do in an elevator crash. And being in a crouch position, the shock got spread through my body. Now I still broke my neck and back, but it wasn't fatal. I recovered. I was out of action for 2 years, really. Yeah, 2 years. I had to have a thing to support my head and so on. I couldn't move, couldn't walk and things. But and it was during this time that I became kind of just empty, and I was just sitting down. I couldn't do any work, couldn't do anything, sitting down out the window, looking at leaves fall from trees. And I just lost it completely. I just lost my soul in some ways, And then some people I said, well, you should get some therapy, get some physical therapy, like special massages and so on. So I started taking acupuncture and massages, and it was nice. It was helpful. And then one day, the practitioner looked at me and said, Howard, do you want to get well again? And it sounds a silly question, but I couldn't answer right away because I got used to being ill. I got used to being kind of semi-invalid. And so I kind of really focused deep within me, as strong as I could. And I thought, yeah, I want to get well again. And then he said, forgive all the people that you blame for the accident. Because the accident wasn't really an accident. It was caused by faulty maintenance at that time. And they didn't shut the elevator system down when they were doing their maintenance. And I was really angry about it. So anyway, okay. So I just got myself together, drew all my force and forgave them. I forgave those people I was angry with for creating this accident. And as I did that, 10 tons of weight just lifted from me. It just lifted from me. It's just like I was floating. And I asked the guy, what was it you said about forgiveness? He said, what? I didn't say anything about forgiveness. And he didn't remember saying anything about I had to forgive. It was just a very strange thing. Anyway, then,
So who do you think talked to you?
It was spirit. It was clearly spirit, as I discovered later. It was inorganic, ineffable beings, and we call them many things, and but so I arrive, I'm at home, and I'm on this cloud, this beautiful cloud I'm on, floating around everywhere, feeling fantastic. And then this another cloud, a cloud like a pink cloud full of sparkling lights and glimmering and glowing, and it moved into me. I was like, I was in bliss, and I knew this was something so special. I knew I had to come into contact with, which I know now was like an angelic presence now. And that's what really started me. It was the act of forgiveness, really. I mean, the near-death experience was the stimulus, but it was the act of forgiveness which actually activated this desire to say, what was all that about? And that's how I got into spirituality, and that's how I discovered shamanism. So it was a whole bunch of events, but the accident in the elevator crash was certainly the moment my life changed. And to be honest, I've thought about it, that even though it was devastating, I was physically devastated. There's a catastrophe in many levels, but it changed my life. And if I had the opportunity to turn the clock back and not step into that elevator, I wouldn't do that. That's how. It's a hypothetical nonsense, of course, but that's my life change. And of course, when your life changes, it really does change. You have to let go of many things. Things that you think this is where you are, this is what you're doing, and that has to go. So you do go into some kind of land of transition, where you have to find yourself. And so my journey, in many respects, including my work with the plants in the Amazon, it's been about finding myself. And it's not something, oh, I found myself. It's something that just opens up and continues to open up. So it's a very beautiful thing. But the accident was the event that changed everything. So yeah, so a life-changing event like an accident or a serious illness. And if you get the message, if you get like, oh, that was a big deal. I've got to, my life can't
pay attention.
go on. I can't, my life can't go on as it is. I have to do something different. And that's a lot of people follow, hear that call, hear that sound. And those people that don't, they know at some deep level that they've missed something, they've lost something. So it's an opportunity, but it comes in a very kind of volatile, even scary package. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think two things that you said that I think are important is the willingness to step forward with what's advised to you, that you actually did what was asked of you, you forgave. That's number one. And that's the step that for many people, that takes a lot of courage, takes a lot of relinquishing all the things that you feel you're entitled to, like an apology, like whatever, And then the other is that you do that, and then you have to really get down to what is your essence. Are you the person who did the job you did before the accident? Are you the boyfriend, the husband, the father? Who are you really? Like, what's left when you strip it all away? And those are really hard moments to go through. But I believe you, I've never experienced anything that devastating. I had a bad horse riding accident, but I wouldn't go back. I wouldn't change it, because what I've learned every time that I have faced with something where life wasn't going the way I wanted, and I've had this nudge, then something physical happens to me. I'm laid low. And then I have the time to reflect and say, well, I don't want to go back over there.
Yeah.
But it took something physical to wake me up. But anyway, I just think that I just commend you for the courage to have listened to the voices, to spirit. Some people wouldn't. So, yeah, so that's great. I love that. And so then you went to the rainforest.
Well, a few other things beforehand. Then
okay, tell me before. Yep.
Well, then I found with this, I was given abilities really with this after this accident, after the forgiveness, with this glowing cloud that moved into me. I had abilities. I mean, like healing abilities and psychic abilities, and I started to heal myself. I started, just clear the pain. I was in terrible pain, and I put my hands on me. I found out the pain went. I just kind of and then other people heard about this, and people come to me, oh, I've got a problem with back, this and the other, and so I just started, put my hands on them, and boom, their pain was gone. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what was happening, but it was working, and people were coming, and friends and family and other people heard from them. So but I thought, what is this all about? What am I doing here? So I thought, well, okay, I must find out. So I checked out the spiritual healers organization. I joined them, and that was interesting. But I describe more detail in the book, The Accidental Shaman, some of the stories here. But it wasn't what I was doing. It wasn't what the abilities I had. It was very different from the way I was working, the way I was shown. And then from there, I met someone, Leo Rutherford, who was on one of those programs, and he was into shamanism. So I got very friendly with Leo, and I started to work with Leo at the Eagles Wing Contemporary Shamanism Center, and I had skills, and Leo has skills, and they just went very nicely together. And so I got much more involved in shamanism. Shamanism felt like home to me. That's what I can say. It wasn't spiritual up there. It was here. It was on the ground. It was on the earth. It was the elements. It was was punchy, it had smell, it had, it was very earthy and present, and that really spoke to me. And so I felt at home with the shamanic kind of concepts and world. And from there, the next step, one of the next steps, was to explore the shamans and the plant medicines in the Amazon rainforest. So it flowed in its own way,
I love that.
One thing led to another thing.
We're going to take a short break in just a few seconds, but one thing I just wanted to comment on, so many of us have these serendipitous flows that I think we all have come to realize are guided by spirit. And I think that it's wonderful. And I want to hear more. We're going to take a short break. Then let's move to the rainforest and talk to me about plant spirits. We'll be right back. Hi, everybody. I'm Doc Martin. We're back on Maximum Medicine. I'm back with Howard Charing, and we're going to step into the rainforest and let Howard tell us about Pablo Amaringo, Pablo's visionary art. I'll let him tell it. He does it so much better than I. So well, Howard.
Yeah, well,
go ahead.
Okay, Pablo was he died in 2009, and he was recognized as one of the world's greatest visionary artists, and he was particularly known for his intricate, colorful paintings inspired by his shamanic visions through ayahuasca. And he was a communicator of this otherworldly experience in his art, where snakes, jaguars, subterranean beings, celestial palaces, and spacecraft all converge into this kind of other reality of the world. There's like two realities. There's the physical reality and there's another spiritual reality. And Pablo's work transcended or brought both into focus. And he retired. He was a very senior shaman. He reached a kind of level of a Mariah, which is a master of the water realm, aquatic realm. But he retired in the 70s, and from doing the shamanic work and that direction as a shaman, and because he was too successful, he was so good in clearing people's curses and sorcery from other people, that the bad guys, the Brucos, started to turn on him, and he thought, I'm not doing this anymore. So he kind of stopped doing that, and he focused on painting. But it wasn't just painting. For him, the nucleus of his work was the school, Uska Aya, where he taught young children art, to paint, and more than mathematics and languages, English and Spanish. So he was a teacher, and the purpose of his art, I can really say, wasn't just to bring kind of enlightenment to us Westerners and show us a different reality, was to fund the school for children. And that was a very, very, very beautiful thing. And I met Pablo back in 97 or something, 96, and we had a beautiful connection. And it was actually a few years later, we met, and I bought some of his artwork over the years, and I had an ayahuasca experience. And in his vision, it was all Pablo's paintings, Pablo's motifs, Pablo's visions, and in this vision, the ayahuasca told me, Howard, do a book about Pablo's newest work. I thought, wow, that's an amazing idea. Wow, And the whole following day, I was thinking about this, and and then I spoke to my colleague Peter Klaus. We had a retreat center in the Amazon, and I said, what do you think, Peter? And he said, yeah, let's do it. So when we finished that retreat, we flew down to Pacapa to meet Pablo, and we told Pablo this vision, and his face just lit up, and there we are. And that's what started it. And it produced this beautiful book, The Ayahuasca Visions of Pablo Amaringo. It's a gorgeous, heavy, nearly 2 kilos book, and it's got some beautiful artwork. I'm not going to show the artwork on the camera because it's just a bit too clunky here. But and that was published in 2011. Pablo wasn't died before then, but he knew he wouldn't be here to see the publication of this book. And he said to me, I won't be here to see this book published, but I will come back and continue my painting, So, so knowing that he wouldn't be here added a different kind of texture for me as well. It's like, oh, here I am transcribing the Gospels here, becoming like a holy work for us, totally dedicated to it. And I'm so happy. It's such a beautiful book, and it's not just Pablo's beautiful artwork. It's his stories, it's his spiritual wisdom, and I can say Pablo's School of Art, the Neo-Amazonica Art School, has started off with many of his students into art careers. So before they had no jobs, no nothing, maybe they could drive a motor taxi or something, but now they're kind of international artists. So he's really opened up the door for many of his students to kind of engage with people. So his work, the legend continues, but it all starts with Pablo, and that's a beautiful thing. So I'm very honored and very proud to be a friend with Pablo, and to have worked with him to bring this book into publication. So very lovely book. It's called The Ayahuasca Visions of Pablo Marengo. Yeah. And so another project with Pablo wasn't here, but a few years later, back in 2015, I was visiting his family, and his son was showing me some Pablo sketches, some drawings. All his drawings of plants, for example, are botanically identifiable. I mean, they're actually exact. And one of the things I'm personally proud of, I was able to identify every single plant in the book with its Latin name. So I really thought that was it was a lot of hard work. And there was only one plant I couldn't identify. So I met the professor of botany at the Loreto Iquitos University in the Amazon, and he identified that plant. So I'm very pleased. 100% identification plants. And all these plants, I said, are botanically identifiable, but are correct and so on. And it's such a beautiful piece of work. So I'm quite delighted. Anyway, 2015, I digress. I met his family, and he was showing me drawings of botanical drawings and some sketches of angels. And I thought, wow, this is really beautiful. And some of the angels I recognized because they're already in his main body of art. The angel here and the little angel there, and so on. So, and I had the idea, why not do something with these angels? And it occurred to me do like an oracle deck, and that was in 2015. So I get back home, and although I didn't use Pablo's original work, they were just sketches. I worked with an artist, and we put some sketches together, some drawings together. I wrote some narratives, and then, as always, I get distracted, start traveling, and all the stuff goes into a box on that shelf over there in that part of the room. And then came, it would have sat in there forever until the pandemic. So I arrived home after 3 extra flight tickets from Peru. I knew I had to get back, and ready had to sign a document at the frontier with the police. I'll stay at home 14 days. And I'm thinking, I should do something. This I've no idea how long it's going to go on for. So I did a shamanic journey, and in the journey, I was told my life, I didn't ask about everybody's life, my life would get back to normal in October 2021. And this is in March 2020. I thought, oh my God, like 18 months. What am I going to do? And so that night I had a dream. And all this beautiful, luminescent, scintillating colored being said to me in the dream, do it now. Start now. And I woke up, I knew exactly what it was. It was this angel project. So I go to the shelf, take the box down, literally blow off the dust off the notes and bits of papers, and I started it. So this beautiful deck inspired by Pablo Marengo, beautiful pictures and so on, and his spiritual wisdom was for me a gift of the pandemic. It kept me going for for the whole time. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it gave me a really beautiful project to work on, keep me active and in a good space. So, and this Amazonian Angel Oracle is inspired by Pablo. There's none of his original artwork in there, but it's very much inspired his colors, his color palette. And everywhere I can, I've quoted Pablo or put a Pablo story in this. And And of course, when I was Pablo, we used to talk a lot, and he used to tell me stories when he was younger and he was doing this, and it's fascinating stories. I used to make notes. I used to go make notes. He was talking, and when I get back to my hotel, put them on the computer and so on. And I was so pleased that I was able to take some of these personal anecdotal stories he told me and put them in there. Some beautiful stories, and they really fit nicely into some of these angelic narratives as well. So yeah, Pablo's spirit is in this for sure. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. And yeah. So, and also the other thing is I'm be working with Peter on a second volume, volume 2 of the ayahuasca visions as well. So that's in the process.
Down the road, yeah.
Yeah, it's on the process. Yeah, first we do the proposal of the book, and see if we get a contract with that. Then we really start work with that. So I really feel that I'm privileged to be able to kind of communicate Pablo's wisdom and art. And that's a very special thing for me,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I just want to reiterate about the oracle before we take a short break. So this, see if I can get it in my picture view. Oh my, I've got a crazy webcam here.
You got this rock painting backdrop there, yeah.
Yeah, I know it's darn it. But anyway, Amazonian Angel Oracle. So working with angels, devas, and plant spirits. It's a 33 card deck and guidebook. That's a better picture there.
Yeah.
I liked it so much. First of all, the colors are vibrant and fabulous. I love angels. I love oracles in the sense of dropping into your connection to spirit and then allowing spirit to choose the picture of the day and getting a message. I love that. I love that about oracles. And I particularly love that about this beautiful, I can't do it with my webcam. Beautiful pictures.
Let me tell you that. See, there's a whole story with that angel, the tree angel, Atun Malka Caspi. I can tell you. We'll hear the story about this. It's such a lovely story.
Yes, I want to hear the story. So Colton,
okay.
We'll push the break back a second.
Okay, so I'll show the picture. Let me if I can find. I've got my cards here. Just see if I can find it here very quickly. Or maybe you can hold up to the camera so people can see it. Yeah, the Atun Malka Caspi. Atun means it's Quechua language. Atun means great. Malka is ancient, and Caspi is tree. So the title of that angel is Great Ancient Tree. And I'll find it.
Don't we love trees?
Well, yeah. Oh, this is really is a Renako tree. Renako tree in the Amazon is like a castle. It grows by the water, and all sorts of amphibious creatures, and even birds and insects and reptiles and monkeys and all sorts of plants and flowers and everything kind of grows around this tree. This tree is like a castle for all sorts of plants and animal life. Anyway, so Pablo, as an apprentice, he's drinking ayahuasca, and the angel, the spirit, asked him a question. Do you know the difference between an old man and an old tree? And Pablo, well, I don't know, And so the spirit proceeded to tell him, really. It says that when a tree reaches mature, elderly tree, it becomes a home for all sorts of creatures, for the amphibians, for the frogs, for the snakes, the reptiles, the monkeys live in the branches, the lianas, and there's also different kinds of plants growing in the branches, and it's a whole insects, it's a whole world in that tree when that tree reaches maturity. Native healers come there for the barks and for the leaves and for the roots, for the medicines and so on. So that tree serves the entire community. When it gets old, everybody is served by this tree. And the spirit said to Pablo, and that's what a real elder does. A real elder serves the entire community with everything. So that was the basis of this story he told me, was the basis of this angel, about eldership, about growing old, about leaving behind, kind of your spirit and your life fertilizes the community. Your life is a gift for everybody, and that came from that story from Pablo. So it's a beautiful. Well, I could read the whole story here, but it would take too long. But that's a lovely card you've chosen. It's my favorite angel, actually.
How about that?
Yeah.
So tell us briefly. We skipped the break just then, so we'll just continue till Colton tells us we're out of time. The difference spiritually for you between angels and devas and plant spirits, because this oracle contains all three of them.
Yeah.
How do you distinguish between them?
Yeah, well, let's start with devas and nature spirits, because there is kind of a very fluid line between the two. They're not hard definitions. So in some respects, we have personified our ancestors, indigenous peoples today, our ancestors as well, have personified the natural forces. The natural forces have a consciousness and awareness. The rivers, the streams, the wells, the trees, the land has a spirit, has a consciousness, and particularly with forests. And people knew this. People knew that they actually had to live in some kind of balance, because it wasn't just a physical object like we see in the West. Our culture sees a tree as an economic resource. It's a piece of wood. It does this. It does that. We've taken kind of the consciousness out of nature, but our ancestors knew nature was alive. Nature had a consciousness, and in some respects, the devas and plant spirits, you can say, are a personification of these natural forces. It makes it easier to interact with, to communicate with, and so on. Yeah, that's how I would see devas, and it's not just a tree or a mountain. It's oceans, it's river systems, it's the earth. It's like the components of the earth are all alive. It's like the cells in our body. Every cell in our body has a function. Every cell in our body is alive, and they form different organs, different glands, and different systems. And that's how I see the nature spirits and the devas of the earth. And but it's not just the physical element. It's the animating force of life on this planet. Just as we are physical bodies, yeah, but there is, we all know this, and those that have been present when someone's died or a birth, they know there's an emanating force which comes into that body, and an animating force which leaves that body, and the person dies. Their last breath, and they die. And if you're with a person at that moment, it's very clear that something has moved off, and that body is just a shell. But the real essence of that person is not physical, and that's the great mystery of life. And we've kind of, though we encounter that in our daily lives, we've kind of lost that in the natural world, and it's become more of an economic, industrial, agricultural resource. And in the West, it's had the life taken out of it in our culture. But our ancestors and indigenous peoples do not have that. They see the world as a living consciousness, and it's been personified. So yeah, and it's not just one culture. It's pretty universal. You know, you go back in time. Angels are a different story. Angels, the biblical definition is really like the messengers of God. I mean, God wants to go and tell Abraham something. Oh, let's get an angel down there to kick him in the backside or something, you know. And so they're the carriers of information from the God. But Pablo saw that really. That's what Pablo's view. Pablo saw these as manifestations, as a personification of aspects of the divine creator, just as we are aspects of the divine creator, the divinity that we are part of, not the thing that has made us, because that's the wrong way of seeing it from this perspective. We are part of this big thing. That we're like a drop of water in the ocean, and or we're a wave of the ocean. We've just forgotten that we're we think we're separate, but we're not. We're part of the whole thing. And so if you take a step back and see ourselves as part of the whole thing, everything starts to make, for me anyway, a lot more sense. So, but
well, I think one of the things that I like, first of all, when we personify, then we can initiate conversation. And then we dialogue with these forces. For me, that reminds you that you are part of something bigger. It reminds you that you're integral part of the web. And I think if we translate that to picking a card from the deck, that's a chance, an opportunity for you at that moment to connect in some way to spirit and enter yourself into the bigger equation. And the more, I'm just going to extrapolate here and say, in today's world, as crazy as it is, the more we can enter into that space, the more we have a chance of saving the planet and our species.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree. And I could say so I kind of moving forward a little bit here. The purpose of an oracle really is that a person brings a question or an important matter to this oracle, and they're given an answer, they're given a response. It may not be clear, but they're given a response, something to reflect upon and something to think about. These days we have things like oracles and tarots and the I Ching, and in my view, they don't tell you your fortune. They don't tell you, oh, this is going to happen, or this is, you're going to meet this person or do that. What they do, if you use it in a correctly, in my view, it opens the door to a higher order consciousness. Now, call it your own super consciousness or call it the spirit world. It opens a door, and it can trigger something off. In some respects, so does good literature, poetry, art. It opens the door, but the oracle opens a more specific door because you have a question about your life. Why is this happening to me? How do I make my changes in my life? And the response is from a higher order, high level order to you. And so that's the benefit of an oracle, to show you something which is hidden to you. I think that's it. Something that's hidden to you, hidden movement in you, and it shows you that. That's a very beautiful thing.
Yeah, that is beautiful. So we have a little over a minute left. What do you see, just briefly, about the upcoming year? How can we tap in? How can we make the most of it? Just in our last few moments here.
Yeah, well, we're going through this incredible transition period. We're going through kind of, in some respects, the end of the 20th century, which is still sticking around a little bit. And before we move into this kind of era of new consciousness, and it's happening. I mean, a part of this new shift, this transformative, is that all the messy, smelly stuff has to come up. It has to come up for release. That's the healing of it. And we're in that right now. And we're in this huge polarization of people who are very much in the material, mechanical perspective of the world. The world is a thing, to people who are becoming much more open and understanding that there is a kind of a spiritual dimension to the physical reality, and that we can bring this into our lives and we can make our physical world a much more humane and more beautiful place. And so it's not about saving the world, it's really about transforming yourself, and as part of that, the world around us will transform as well, because we're not separate from this. And that's the thing, that we're moving from separation, like the Cartesian notion, to a much more inclusive, connected world. So that's going to go on, and probably by the end of this year, 2023, we'll start to see shifts and changes in that direction. But it's going to get a little bit messy, and as we can see, as we are experiencing it right now. But that's part of it.
So everybody, again, thank you. I'm Doc Martin. I'm Maximum Medicine. Thank you to Howard Charing and his beautiful Amazon Oracle deck. Let me get it in the right picture here. On Amazon, Howard?
Yes, on Amazon. You can check out my website. If you can put my website link with the video that goes out, that's hgcharing.com, and enjoy it. And thank you for inviting me. It's Doc Martin.
Thank you, and Happy New Year. And
thank you. Same to you as well.
Touch. All right. Thank you.
Thanks,
a lovely
evening. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, bye.
All right. Bye.
You've been listening to Maximum Medicine Radio with Doc Martin. Tune in next time while the doc talks health, spirituality, and the impact your beliefs have on every part of who you are, body and soul. Doc Martin unpacks the challenges we face as human beings and teaches callers to open the door between the scientific and the mystical. To learn more about Doc Martin and Maximum Medicine, visit www.sharonmartinmd.com.